Welcome to the Hoops&Huddle podcast with Malika and Brandon. And Brandon is the rubric, of course, who goes over the business side of sports. We are here this week talking about the Boston Celtics offseason. And of course, we're talking about this after the huge, biggest NBA contract of all time so far with Jaylen Brown. And we're going to talk to some Celtics fans who are excited about this new deal and locking in Jaylen Brown for eternity, probably. So the Celtics appear committed to keeping Jaylen Brown and Jason Paden together, and his deal's only going to be bigger when his comes up. But we have Nat Reese Rebel, but Nat the GM, that's what she's known as on Twitter, but Reese Rebel is the handle. And we have Justin Paden, Paden. I always get he is a YouTuber. Throw out your handles, how people can find you. Justin, go ahead.
You can find me on YouTube. It's just JP with a Z instead of an S. I also do JP Talk Celtics. I'm building that up on my YouTube and on Twitter and TikTok, so you can find me there.
Nice. Cool. And Reese, I've known Nat the GM since Clubhouse. Love her knowledge of the game, NBA and NFL. Like she talked about the game with the girl. Like this is the episode that Brandon has been excited about. He's like, "But we gonna have Nat. When we gonna have Nat?" So yeah, Nat definitely has admirers. So let's get started. Usually when we've been doing these off-season chats, we always start off with ownership. I like to start off with Brandon's wheelhouse, looking at the business side of things for the top. So how do y'all feel about the ownership of the Celtics? I know y'all just recently that was the Bucks, different ownership. But let's talk about the Celtics ownership group and how you guys each feel about them and their commitment to the franchise.
Go ahead, Nat.
Sure. So first of all, thank y'all for the love. I love what y'all do. Malika, I've been a fan of yours for years, goes past this Twitter spaces stuff, but I appreciate y'all so much. And thank you for having me. When it comes to ownership, I think that they have had to make up for some bad moves in the past, and they're finally catching up and making up for it. So I've always looked at the Celtics as kind of a little cheap, like they pay the wrong people and they don't pay the right one. That's how I've always looked at them. So I was like, okay, they're not serious. I can always tell when they're serious, and I'm like, they're not serious. And I can also tell you that they've gotten lucky with some players and it's propelled them to where they are today, So when it comes to ownership, I think I've been the most happy with them recently, and I'll say in the past couple of years, because you have to pay people. You have to pay these players. They're not going to come here, You can talk about that, the 80s and 90s stuff all day. Oh, we're tough and gritty and, in defense. Nobody.
I will say, Nat, and I get on you about your, appreciating the Celtics history. They were one of the greatest teams of all time. Like the 80s Celtics, when Larry Bird got there, the winning percentage jumped. Like it was an incredible jump the year he got there from the previous year.
Of course.
And three times he was amazing. But I don't think Nat gives enough appreciation.
But this is the thing, right? This is the thing. I know that, right? But how you sell Larry Bird, you cannot sell these guys in 2023.
That's facts.
It's just not the same.
That's facts.
So
that's true.
That's my point. I love the old school, all that. I love those guys. I love that era. I'm just saying that I move with the times, and you're not gonna get the best of the best if you're cheap. If you don't open up that checkbook. Sure. So I am actually okay with what they're currently doing in the front office, because now it makes sense. This team makes the most sense this year, this upcoming year that's going that we're coming into in 2023. this is the team that makes the most sense to me. That, okay, I say, okay, now they're serious. Now I can understand you've made up for, you've needed a big man for a long time. And now you said, open up the checkbook. So I actually like where they're going right now. So I love the front office right now. And that's Bradford Stevens included.
And that's we're going to get to the GM next. We're going to the GM is next. The GM is next.
Go ahead. I agree with that 100% regarding about the ownership. I'm really happy what the ownership is doing right now in terms of, finally opening up the checkbook and paying players. You was missing a big guy for a while. You getting Porzingis, you was missing a facilitating point guard. You added Malcolm Brogdon, you added Derek White in the trade, and then, drafting like good players like a Jaylen Brown and a Jason Tatum. So they've been kind of like making up, like she was saying, Danny Ainge was known as like, just taking risk and making a lot of these good or bad choices. And then, bringing in Brad Stevens, we're going to talk about him next, which is a good move. They're kind of focused on trying to make up all the stuff that they were doing back in the day to where they are now to try to make the team a lot better. So I'm really happy recently with the ownership so far, and they're trying to take it serious to try to compete in the East and try to win a championship.
Okay. Now, one of the things, Nat, I remember when we chatted, is probably about a year ago, when they made the move. Brad Stevens, now it's actually maybe a little longer than that. Brad Stevens was coach, stepped into his role, basically finagled his way, something that I've never seen a bruh do, finagled his way from getting fired to getting a promotion. And I remember we were like, hey, how does this work? Like, I ain't never really heard of somebody about to be fired. Like, let me go be the GM. Like, in hindsight, it looks like they may have made some good decisions. But how do you feel ownership all the way into middle management, GM, and how they're putting support around this player organization? How is that working now? Do you think they're making the right decisions? Do they putting the right, not just players, the actual leadership and support roles, the front office, player development, things of that nature? Is Brad Stevens the right person? Did they make the right moves? Are they continuing to do that? How do you feel about that?
So I feel really good about it. So when that move happened, I was not a fan of Bradford Stevens.
No, she was not.
I was just not a fan of this man, as a coach. I just thought he was very stubborn. I thought that I just don't think that he utilized the players to the best of their abilities, and I don't think that he got the best out of them, and I think that at some point he was just talking to a wall, and you can tell he lost the locker room. You can tell it's just his philosophy was just not working, And then when, Daniel Ainge is like, I'm going to take time and step away because of my health. I'm like, dude, your health hasn't been good necessarily for 15 years. I think he just wanted to bow out and as opposed to saying, I made a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to bow out, and put it on something else, and then move Brad Stevens in there like, oh, it's just, this is just a time and it's smooth. In reality, nobody wants backlash, and that was my opinion of that, So when Brad Stevens stepped in and I saw the moves he made, Ime Udoka and all that stuff like that, and it made sense. I was like, all right, they're almost there, but if people actually remember, and it's on my Twitter, a couple of years ago, I didn't pick Boston to win the finals.
I remember that. I picked
Golden State,
That's right.
And I stood on, I said, I'm going to die on this hill because I'm like, I know this team and how they're constructed. And I said, Boston's not ready yet. And even when we got to the finals, I said, we're not going to do it. I said, it's going to be fun, but old habits die hard. And then, and then, whatever happened, I think that they did the best that they could, but, it is what it is. And then this past season, you see it, but they're moving in the right direction. And this is what I have been waiting for. I don't think I've ever been as excited about a Boston Celtics team that I am like this year since 2008.
Get that. I get that. Justin, and you came a long way with Brad Stevens. She was calling him outside of his name, and it used to crack me up on Clubhouse I used to
Bradford. I'm like, who the hell? She know this?
It used to crack me up, but go ahead, Justin.
So with Brad Stevens, I wasn't really huge of a fan of him as a coach just because just his philosophy coming from Butler, winning the championship and then coming to the professional ranks is going to be a little bit difficult and all that. We've seen what Rick Pitino done. That didn't really work out at all. So, but, he got there because, he had really talented players. And then, you make that transition up to the front office. You're just kind of like, okay, this is going to be really interesting. What is he going to do? And then he started making these nice moves, like Nat was saying, bringing in Mary Doka and then bringing in a couple players too as well. And it's going in a really good direction. Very high, on Brad Stevens, especially like after, the Eastern Conference Finals this year, bringing in a really good coaching staff, which we're probably going to get into, bringing in Sam Cassell, bringing in Charles Lee, the Tom Butler assistant coach. That was a great move. And then bringing in players that feels like that could fit into the system, either with Udoka and Mazzulla. So he done a really good job. And, he handled himself very professionally when he does the press conference and everything. So I'm very happy the direction that he is going. And I'm looking forward to this team this year and see what they're going to do.
And really quick, when you just said, Justin, you just reminded me, like, I didn't touch on the coaching staff right now. Mm-hmm. I am not a huge necessarily fan of Mazzulla.
That was my next
question. Me though.
That was my next question. You already went into it. I thought Ime Udoka was the perfect coach for the Celtics. And
yes.
Even though there was a feeling that maybe all the players didn't love his style, but he got results. He was able to take them in 1 year, what Brad Stevens wasn't able to do as long as he was there.
Is it first year coach or are
first year coach
that you're saying that you don't like about what he's doing? Because I think those things are different. Like everybody, I don't think anybody comes out the gate, I'm the top dog on day one. What are you all seeing? What is it that you? So
if you guys remember, which we all saw it, game 1 of the Philly series, so second round, they lost by 4. It was 119 to 115. He said we had a lot of good shots. We needed to score more. You scored 115 points. You don't have a problem with scoring. You have a problem with defense.
Yes.
You have a problem with your guys are not defending. Your defensive schemes are not working. And people are staying in too long. Al Horford camping out in the corner and all this stuff. It was just like, what are you doing? Like, if they lost that game, and let's say it was just like a defensive battle, I'd be okay, and I'd be like, you lost and you tried, and defensively you were giving it to them, but the shot still went in. You could clearly pinpoint why they lost. So like a few games, those 3 games, you can pinpoint what happened. And to me, it had to do with philosophy. Yeah, some guys, they didn't play their best, but defense will win you some games, man. Like defense will get you somewhere because after a while, offense will follow. And they just that wasn't the motto. So I don't like Mazzulla's attitude per se. He sits, in the podium. He's like, no one's going to say anything about the coach. Oh, all right, really? And he gets up and walks away. I'm like, dude, I'm 33, so he's like 34. So I'm like, dude, I wouldn't even do that. Like, there's no way. So I'm like, oh my God, grow up. You made a mistake. So just fix it. So it's just his attitude and his coaching style that I'm very I'm just a little bit taken aback by. But I truly think that if he does not get better and change a little bit of his philosophy, his replacement was the first one hired, and that is Sam Cassell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who I should have been a coach by now, by the way.
Yes.
He should have been a coach by now. I agree. He definitely should have been a coach by now. I was hoping, it looked like in the playoffs, some of his press conferences, I was like, he doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't, and I hate to do it. And a lot of people were doing it. It's unfortunate let's just say it. It's unfortunate what happened with the May Udoka in
Yeah.
Boston last summer. It's a shame that, and hopefully, there was no using position to get anything in this, but we never found out the true nature. I am not blaming anyone, the victim or anyone like that. I just want to put it out there. I support victims of, if any sexual harassment taking place, but there's no record that it did. So with the May Udoka, I don't know if Boston could have, he was the perfect coach, I felt, for that team. And losing him, I felt, was a huge hit. Joe Mazzulla had a tough act to follow, to have a first-year coach get done with a May Udoka got done. And I'm pissed my Nets did not hire him, but I digress. Joe Mazzulla, his first year, okay, everybody's not going to hit like Udoka hit his first year. Maybe his second year is the charm. What changes would you like to see from him in year two? What are your top priorities that you would like him to focus on for year two? He does have some coaches coming in that can really help. But what would you like the coaching staff to focus on? Then we'll move on to the roster.
So with Joe Mazzulla, and you're right, Malika, he had like a really tough act to follow after Udoka taking them to the finals, and there was just a lot of expectations, and there was a lot of pressure on Mazzulla, and it wasn't like really that we wanted Mazzulla as a coach and all that. The organization was like, this is going to be our best hire, and we're going to see how we're going to walk with them this year. So with Mazzulla, gotta call timeouts. That's the first thing I always said about Mazzulla. And when I watch games, he doesn't call timeouts. He just try to trust the players a lot more. And it was like, what you got to do in this situation. So go ahead and do it. And y'all got to figure it out. Because he was more of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, he absorbs a lot more than Udoka, because Udoka had the player experience. So he knows what the players go through because he played in the NBA before. Mazzulla's just observing, just trying to figure things out. He's don't really talk. He just, do what he does. He's not really, coaching. So maybe he might put his input in a little bit of coaching with, Sam Cassell and Charles Lee coming in to help him, figure out how to be a better coach and how to better this team, and how he can put his mind into coaching this team. So I think he just got to call timeouts. I just think he just needs to just figure out different ways. He'd be switching a lot, and they'll just like switch up different people. It's like, why not just stay or try to come off screens or trying to come up on screens? So there's just like a lot of different ones that he really needs to work on. But I'm glad he got people that have experience in the coaching staff that's going to help them this year.
Okay. Now let's move to the roster. First of all, let's talk about Jaylen Brown's contract. He signed a $304 million, I believe it's a 5-year contract, 300.
Yes,
it is.
The richest NBA contract to date. Jason Tatum will surpass him next summer when he signs his, and it's predicted to be like 338 or something like that, because he's going to make another All NBA team. So first of all, how do you feel about the deal? I don't know if the Celtics could have avoided signing him to this deal, but what are your thoughts about the deal? Because now it's already estimated next summer they're going to be above the second apron. They will not be able to utilize the mid-level exception. The draft pick automatically moves to the back of the draft. They will not be. They're going to be hampered on how they can build their roster because of the new CBA. So let's talk about that first, then we move on to the roster construction this summer so far.
Go ahead, Nat.
Okay.
And that, I know you haven't been exactly a staunch fan of Jaylen Brown. So when this deal was signed,
I want to hear. That's why I want to hear the difference of what I heard 12 months ago.
Let's go, Nat. Let's go.
Ham. She goes ham on him.
Yeah, honest thoughts.
So That's a lot of money for Jaylen Brown. I don't see, whether you're a fan of his or not, it's a lot of money for a player of his caliber. It's not that he's a bad player, it's not that he stinks or anything like that. I don't think guys stink. That's not what I'm
So
saying.
maybe 225 is a better range of 200. Like if you would have signed that, maybe you wouldn't have been as
5 years, 250, I would have been like, okay.
okay. Yeah.
But I think that I would have been able to stomach that a little bit more. The only reason why I'm not necessarily like as enraged as I would have been is because I technically thought that because of some bad decisions a few years ago, we would have had to trade Jaylen Brown to get a big man of KP's caliber.
Yeah.
That's actually why I would have been, really pissed off if we had Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and then same Al Horford, Robert Williams. I would have been really, really pissed off because I'm like, this does not make sense. We have not addressed anything, on this roster that we need to propel us forward. So once we got KP for Marcus Smart, I said, it hurts a little less. I will be honest with you, because we got rid of an inefficient scorer and a mid playmaker, whether people want to admit it or not. He was a mid playmaker, and and he was in the chucking the shots and stuff. Like, as much as I love Marcus Smart, I knew he was not a starting point guard, especially for this team.
You have been saying that for a while. Yeah.
So when he left, I was, and when I found out that the Malcolm Brogdon deals fell through, and then we kept Brogdon, but Marcus left, I said, woof, we got rid of the right one. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, y'all are crazy, But when it comes to the Jaylen Brown deal, it hurts a little less for me because we kept some really good scorers who can also defend. We kept guys that can do both, and that's important. So now Jaylen has a guy in KP who's actually going to help him. He's going to take a lot of attention away where he doesn't have to dribble the air out of the ball. And there he can minimize the dribbling and he can just go back to efficiently scoring, which is actually what he's good at. So if he's going to take 3 less dribbles and he's going to score 25 points, if that's what you're telling me for the next 4 to 5 years, then I'm okay with the deal, especially if there's a championship or 2 in there. But if they don't win anything, I'll be honest with you, we're gonna revisit this, and we're gonna have to about.
I gotta be honest, Nat. I did have some concern with it. I am probably closer in the Marcus Smart category. Not because of what you said. What you said is accurate. I don't look at Marcus Smart as I'm gonna put up points. If they still had Ime Udoka, I'd be like, cool, Marcus Smart, you can bounce. But given his tenacity on the defensive end of the ball, his presence in the locker room, at the same time that Mazzulla looks like he's losing the attention of players at critical moments in games, that was my concern. Couple that with, if KP is not going to be healthy at some stretches throughout the year, they're in trouble again, regardless of the number, and a shitload of money to all the players or not. If you don't have KP, you don't have KP, you don't have them. So that was my only thing that I wondered how it will affect the chemistry of that locker room at the same time when you just turned over your coach. Now, and add in Sam, okay, cool. That, I think that might offset it because of his seniority in the league itself. He's closer to a Monty than probably a Mazzulla in terms of his respect and cachet in the league. That's what I wondered. That was my only concern. I was like, man, they're losing something at a year that they went downhill compared to the previous.
And just real quick, that's one of the reasons Memphis went so hard for him too, because they want his presence in the locker room. They're trying to build some pieces around Ja. And I know why they went for him. But your response.
Go ahead.
I was, when I seen that deal yesterday, I was kind of like, emotionally, I was like, no. But it was expected though, because you heard rumors that it's possibly going to get done. And, he was eligible for this contract on July the 1st, and it's July 26th. So they finally agreed to a deal and all. So at first I was like, oh God, this is not good. But then I'm looking at like the other side of it, because yeah, he's going to have the richest contract in NBA history. That's going to tell you that there's going to be more players. Jason Tatum, once his contract is up, is going to get more money, like around 338 million. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander probably going to be the first player that's going to get 400 million.
But that's not for a few years.
Yeah, and the next few years, based on the salary cap and the, because it's increasing by 10% with the TV deals looming, and also the revenue is increasing. So it didn't really bother me as much. It's a little bit of extra money for Jaylen, and that was a smart move on his part, because he got the trade kicker. So when he gets traded, one day if anything just happens, he's gonna get more money out of it. And then also, he has no player option in his final year and all that. So, I'm very happy for Jaylen. And as a person, he's great. And, they're trying to figure things out, because he's helping the community, and what he wants to do for the city of Boston. So, yeah, it was just a little bit of money. But at the same time, you can't complain about it. It's a done deal. You got to do what you got to do. It's championship or bust the next couple of years. They have to win it this year, or they have to win it next year. Because if they don't win the championship, it's pretty much going to be a waste of a contract.
Yeah, and just to go back to Brennan, what you said, I think that when people think of the word leader, they think of one type of leader, and that's the loud guy. And just because you're loud doesn't mean you're a leader, and it also doesn't mean you're a great one. I think that sometimes that if someone, or if guys are more reserved and a guy is louder, then the louder person always looks like the leader. In reality, that's not necessarily it. I think that there's some tenure there with Marcus Smart, because he was the longest standing Boston Celtics on the roster since I think 2014, so about 9 years. So of course you'd look to him, and then he's loud, he's aggressive, he's passionate, all these things. But I've seen leadership from Al Horford. I've seen leadership from Jason Tatum. I've seen leadership from Jaylen Brown. I've seen it at different times, and one thing, like when we talk about leadership, and let's say Jason Tatum, he's not aggressive and rough. He's smooth and to the point. He's like, we need to get out here. We need to play. I'm gonna lead by example. Leading by example is also leadership. If you know that this team is not doing well, then you should also know they should be following your lead, and you got to get them out of that rut. And I've seen him do that multiple times. So I think that people are looking for a loud leader, and that's not necessarily what Boston needs, So I think that when it comes to leading, I think that some guys will take, certain reins at certain times, but I think Jason leads by example, and he's only gonna increase, his leadership and do better, with that. He probably will be a little bit more vocal, but he doesn't have to be as loud as Marcus Smart.
You say is the leader on the team if they're not producing. That was what I was looking for throughout when that Philly series. If they were not producing, who was the guy that the team, I don't know, call it maybe Udonis, call it some of the other quiet leaders in the league. Whether they were vocal or not, who would you say, knowing that the team more so than others, the team looks to like, what he say, we flow that way.
So this is the thing. They're looking at Jason. That is just point blank, period. If you remember that Philly series, and people are always going to have something to say about Jason, it's because he's not rough and aggressive. Point blank, period. That's why they don't like him. He's smooth, and he can get aggressive when he wants to.
Okay.
But when you think back to that Philly series, nobody showed up for that game 7. If you want to be real, nobody. Jaylen Brown did not have a good series. He's missing defensive coverages, leaving people 3-point shooters who are third in all-time 3-point shooting in the corner alone. James Harden had a whole dinner prepared. He had all that time to eat and then shoot that shot. But it's like he was the only one that showed, and then everyone else had moments. But there was an aggressiveness that I think happened. What was it, maybe game 6 or something, or whatever, that Tatum said, F that. He said, I'm gonna keep shooting. I'm give me the ball. And they won. And then game 7 was history. He's the only one that showed up. And I think maybe Robert Williams, but Robert Williams is not supposed to be the guy you necessarily lean on. He's a compliment. So Jason is definitely the guy you're looking at, like, what we gonna do? Because guess what? When he sits, the team looks terrible. Like when he sits, you're looking at Jason. It's definitely
All right. What you say, Justin? What you got?
I agree with that 100% regarding about the leadership, because now this year you're going to be like looking at Tatum and Brown as the leaders of the team. And like Nat said, you don't have to be as vocal, like a Marcus Smart being emotional, that emotional leader. They can lead by example, whether on the basketball court or like, try to pick each other up. You still got veterans like Al Horford that can still be leaders that can, lead this team and all. So yeah, you don't have to be a vocal leader, just lead by example. We see Tatum have moments where, he'll just lead, because if Tatum gets motivated and plays really hard, the whole team picks up the ante. Like you see Brogdon, you see Robert Williams, everybody will follow behind Jason Tatum. So Jason Tatum is exactly going to be the leader of it, but like Nat said, he doesn't have to be as vocal. He just got to lead by example.
Now, we already alluded to a big pickup that you guys with Kristaps Porzingis, who in the past has had health issues where he couldn't stay healthy a whole season. He looked good last year with Washington playing with Kuzma. And I'm intrigued to see him with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I think it can unlock him a little bit. I think it could be a really good addition. It could be like you guys' version about when Walton joined the Celtics and they had that incredible season in '86. Who knows? He could come to the Celtics and he has his best season. Another player you guys have that is kind of injury. I just feel like you have Malcolm Brogdon is coming off an injury. That's why he couldn't be traded. You have Robert Williams, who's been injury prone, and you have Porzingis. Like, what are your concerns with your roster construction and backups for those players if there's an issue?
Go ahead, Nat.
You want me to go? Okay.
Yeah.
Marcus Smart wasn't always 100% healthy. I don't know.
That's true.
What we're thinking of when they say
I'm not even referring to Marcus. I'm just talking about the fact.
I know what
the way
you're saying.
The roster is next. The way your roster is constructed next.
No, I know what you're saying, and my point to that is Marcus was never 100% healthy, really. Year in, year out. So so he's had years where he's played 50-something games, 60-something games. I think there's one in there was 40-something. It's just he doesn't necessarily touch 70. I think he touched 70 a couple times, or a few times or whatever. But like he's not necessarily always healthy. He's always banged up because of how he plays the game. There's games he's had to miss. There's games where you had to play him a little less because he's banged up. His ankle is messed up. His shoulders are messed up because he's on the floor or whatever. So he's not as he's not himself. So I think that injuries just are a part of the game, honestly. Yeah. And it just kind of it's what it is. Malcolm Brogdon is a guy that he was healthy all year up until that third round. Yep. And if it was not for him, a lot of games and the second round, versus Philly, he has some good games.
Yep.
He just came in, he was a bucket. And like he shoots 40% from three, and he shoots a lot of them, That's not a fluke.
So less concerned about Malcolm Brogdon, really. Okay.
I just know because the injury that he has, I think he'll heal and I think he'll be right back, honestly. And I really do feel like, in my heart of all hearts that we kept the right guards. I really do, and I really like Derek White as well. So yeah, I've been a fan of Malcolm since he got into the league, since he was in with Milwaukee. I watched him every single year, and I've always wanted him in Boston. Every single year, I'm like, why haven't we traded for Malcolm Brogdon? Every year, and we got him. I was excited. I'm okay that he was hurt in that third round because it's just a part of the game sometimes, Now, if you only playing 20 games a year, 30 games a year, okay, we can talk about it.
Yeah,
we can talk about it, but it just kind of is what it is. We're gonna roll with the punches. Also, our guys conditioning. That's my other thing. Our guys work like making sure that their bodies are they consuming the right foods? Are they drinking enough water? Are they hydrating? All these other things to keep themselves going and preserve their body. How are they treating themselves? So I think Malcolm is also one of the ones that he does do that. He's good at his nutrition and all that stuff like that. So the rest of it, we just have to, chalk it up to sometimes things happen. And when it comes to Kristaps, he said something in his press conference that I've always felt. He said my body had to mature, and because he's a really big dude, he's a big man, and sometimes those guys, they're a little bit more injury prone because of their size and their height, so he's like, my body had to mature. And then last year he had a great season and he played like 65 games, I think, which is good, which is really good, honestly, for a big man of his size and caliber. So if you're going to tell me that he's going to play 65 to 68 games, sit out a few, and then come back for the playoffs and be ready for the playoffs, I'm all right with that. So I'm going to roll with it, So everybody can't be Jason Tatum. I think.
Right.
I feel that.
Always look at the road not taken and opportunity costs. You have your show, so you want to be a GM, and people are always criticizing what moves are made. What were the alternatives that were on the market? Forget the number 304. I personally don't think that's a big deal. Everybody knows. I don't think the players get paid enough, hands down, across the board of the NBA.
Right.
The owners are going to be cleaning up with this new
The money's still going to come in.
I mean, the Hornets just sold for a $3 million valuation.
What could they have done?
Sold for $3 million valuation.
What is it?
Mm-hmm.
Kristaps.
So ask me that one more time. I think I missed the question.
If it's not Jaylen Brown, if they don't do that deal, means that you're looking at some other major moves across the league. What other alternatives that they have out there that would have been significantly better than keeping Jaylen Brown in house and doing something?
Would you have wanted Damian Lillard if he had Boston as a preferred team? Would he been an alternative to Jaylen Brown for you?
I go back and forth with that. I'm not the biggest Damian Lillard fan. People can say what they want about Damian Lillard and it's just the team he's played on. He's played on some good teams. I mean, you may not have had like first team, players, but you had some really good players that also
with like LaMarcus Aldridge. Nice. Them years with LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yes. Oh God, LaMarcus Aldridge, man. Like he's one of my favorite big men. One day we gotta talk about LaMarcus Aldridge. 20,000 career points, man, and nobody talks about it. That is huge for someone of his caliber. Yeah, but he's played with some really good guys, and I can think back to let's say a couple seasons ago, man, when he lost that series versus Denver, and Denver really had none of their starters. It was like all bench guys and Joker. I was like, man, that should tell y'all something right there. Like he had his whole team and they didn't have theirs, and then he still lost. I was like, okay, that should tell you something. I wasn't a fan of the Damian Lillard one, and I really yo-yoed back and forth with it, because do I think that he would have had a really good run in Boston? Yes. As long as we would have kept guys like Derek White and Brogdon. And, I think that he still would have been great in Boston, but I was fine with keeping Brogdon and Derek White, Then you talk about were you going to trade him to Portland for the number 3 pick? And then, what's my guys? Anthony Simons, who's a big way for him to just be able to
Love
plus
him.
up.
Yes.
But do you do that? And I was a fan. I think Scoot's going to be a damn.
Oh, he's going to be.
Scoot is going to be phenomenal.
He's going to be phenomenal.
I think he's perfect for Portland. I think that I'm one of the rare people that think Hornets in Portland, they landed with the great franchises.
Yes.
I'm gonna say the jury's out for me on the Brandon Miller pick. I'm gonna wait to see it.
Nope, I love it. I'm already sold, but
I know
hopefully
you are. I know you are. I'm gonna say I'm gonna wait because when there's a scoot on the board, I'm just
LaMelo.
like,
People are forgetting. How did LaMelo feel about that? What did he express?
I got you.
Cornerstone. He's the cornerstone.
Yeah.
And he was all in on Brandon Miller, calling him and communicating with him. And
he ain't want Scoot to come take his spot. I would call Brandon too. You know?
I just think that that's something that people are not taking, and they're just assuming. And I'm like, you got to be careful when it comes to egos and player chemistry.
It's true.
I think this is a tangent. Sorry, listeners. I think Scoot is going to be phenomenal. I think it was time for Portland to move on from Damian Lillard. It was overtime. Damian Lillard should have been traded a few years ago.
Yes.
I think he's going to end up in Miami, but I do think Scoot in Portland is the right place for him because they needed Dame to move
Another
on,
dynamic guard,
and he should be there.
Yeah.
I think it would have been interesting with him and LaMelo in the lineup. When I don't think I'm one of the rare people. I'm not sure that would have worked. You got to look at chemistry and would LaMelo want him there? I mean, the vibes I'm getting, I'm not so sure. When you look at the chemistry with Brandon Miller, how much he's been, I don't know. He was at his workout when he went there the second time. He was right there with Mark Williams. They were right there in the front. Like, you just look at all the signs. But back to Boston.
Real quick though, like, and I feel you. I think I'm just such a Scoop fan at the things
I love Scoop. I love Scoop.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the alternatives, if you kind of think about it, I don't think that there were a lot out there, that made sense. I think that last year, it's kind of like in hindsight, would you have traded JB for Kevin Durant? Some people are like, okay, did we miss it again? Because Boston has done that before where, certain guys, you could have gotten them and they held back, and they held back. So, were they like, would it have made a difference in the finals if we had Kevin Durant? The answer is yes. The answer is absolutely, not in the finals, excuse me, the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah,
would it have made a difference? The answer is yes, absolutely. It would have made a huge difference. And I think actually we probably would have won still, So I don't think that there were a lot. Then you hear, players like Cat. I love Cat.
Yeah.
You would have been pissed. Let's be honest, Boston.
You
would have been pissed if Carl Towns was a Celtic right now for Jaylen Brown. You would have been pissed. You would have been pissed if Marcus Smart was traded and Malcolm Brogdon was traded for Carl Towns. You would have been pissed. You would have been pissed either way. Kristaps Porzingis is absolutely the best option that we could have gotten for just one player, and keeping Jaylen Brown, it actually makes more sense now. So I actually think that the right things were done, and it just remains to be seen, though, if that money will come back and bite them.
Yeah. It's oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Justin.
I was just gonna say I agree with Nat 100% about that. There wasn't really a lot of options. The whole Damian Lillard, I was back and forth too as well. I was just trying to think how he's gonna fit with Boston. In terms of the way he plays. Is he gonna be like off the ball a lot more? So I was just kind of going back and forth with that one. You hear some other ones. Joel Embiid. One day possibly coming to Boston. I was just like, I don't think it's gonna be good. Cat. No. So, they've been doing a really good job of just keeping just the pulse of what they really need and all that. It's like, oh, we need a facilitating point guard. Let's go get a facilitating point guard. Get, Malcolm Brogdon. Get, Derek White in the trade. So they kept their pulse. We needed an available big because there's no way Grant Williams was going to stay in Boston. And they got Porzingis, which is probably the best option and all that. I would love to see a Zubac from the Clippers come to Boston, a guy that could consistent with a double-double. So they kept their hands on their pulse for the team just to see how they could keep improving the team so that they can get into the finals to win the championship. So there wasn't really any options.
Okay. All right.
I just want to say real quick, the salary cap is going to continue to increase. I had a conversation in a group chat with Hoop Spaces, and he was saying he thinks there's going to be, he thinks that these salaries are going to like bubble up. Like it's not going to be this huge, like these salaries are going to see these mass increases across the board. We'll see, because right now we're already seeing a like the middle men are being phased out with these big contracts. Like they wanted to have the mid-level players that get an increase. They get, in the CBA, they get an increase. But if you have these teams going to the second apron and they only can sign minimum contracts, it was talked about in the Pat Beverly podcast I looked at today, and I really look at it, but T-Mac was on it, and he was saying, y'all ratified this CBA, and like you're a player that should be getting, like some of the players like you that should be getting between 10 and 12 million, you're not signing for that because these teams are not going to have the room to sign level players. So you guys ratified a CBA that is cutting the middleman. It's still cutting the middleman. And Pat Beverly could just say, yeah. And so we'll see what happens as a result of that. That's what I wanted to point out, because I thought that was an interesting comment to make. Now, my last question, as you look at the Celtics as constructed, are there any other moves you would like them to make, or are you comfortable? Like you said earlier, you're the most excited about your team, the Celtics, that you've been in a while. Is there anything else they can do to make it better? Are you solid with where you are now? And hey, let's start the season.
I'm excited for the season. Where I know losing Marcus Smart and Grant Williams, that's a couple of defensive players, and they kind of got it back, signing Brissett from Indiana, and also drafting Jordan Walsh, who's going to be kind of like Grant Williams' replacement. So this team, I feel like they're going to really compete, and they can go to the finals if because Grant Williams said something on the Old Men in the Three podcast, saying that the connectivity on the defensive side wasn't there last year, as well as the late game decisions. Hopefully this season they can work on like the turnovers, they can work on the late game decisions and try to figure out, because they be up by like 10 or 12 points, and then all of a sudden they lose their side on defense. They can't really hit shots. They depend on the three too much. So competition in the East, the only competition is Milwaukee. The only thing with Milwaukee, they just got a new coach. So this team, and then you add in Porzingis, you got the same coach, you got the same players that you have. You just lost Smart and Grant Williams. I feel like they can really compete in the East. They can be a 50-win team. They can win the championship. Like I said, it's championship or bust, this year or next year.
As constructed, no additional moves made, you still take that position?
I will still take that position just because I feel very confident in the squad. You're going to see Tatum might have like a really good season. You see he was top 3 in MVP last year. He might take a step up. Jaylen Brown, in terms of, he just signed that big contract and all that, where he's going to be producing Porzingis. So you got like a really nice roster, and then you got people that you can close out as well. Derek White, I'm really excited about. That's probably the one most exciting player I'm waiting for the Celtics. He's getting to that starting position and being able to, do what he does. He might be able to facilitate. He's going to play defense. He's going to score the basketball if he's open with the 3. So I'm very excited about him. I'm very confident in this team, and you beefed up the coaching staff to help Mazzulla and his coaching. So I'm very excited.
Okay. All right.
Nat.
Okay.
Justin spitting, y'all. Justin out here spitting.
Okay. All right. So y'all in the light. I'm looking for. Go ahead, Nat.
So shout out to Justin, man.
Love you, Nat.
So when it comes to this team, the one thing that makes me feel good about where they're at currently is the fact that they were able to retain Al Horford and Robert Williams.
Yep.
They did
What
not
about
get rid
Peyton
of him.
Pritchard? What do you think about him?
Huh?
What do you think about Peyton Pritchard?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you know, like
I was just curious because we
Like, I
haven't
don't
mentioned
know.
his name at all. But go
I
ahead.
just hope he's happy that he's going to finally get some playing time. So
he might, and if he doesn't, he doesn't.
he
But
doesn't,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, not. I'm not big on Peyton Pritchard. I'll be completely honest. But what I will say is, I think the key to being stable and being confident in this roster was keeping Al Horford and Robert Williams, making sure that you did not touch them in trades because it's vital. Now, what you did, well, I'm going to tell you exactly what Boston did. When they got rid of Grant Williams, the reason why it doesn't hurt as bad is because who now moves into that position but plays more consistently? Al Horford.
Yep.
You know, so you just replace Grant Williams with the better version, you know, of Grant Williams, you know, of somebody who hopes to be, you know, somebody who Grant hopes to be at some point and more consistent. So you just have Al Horford now. So, okay, Grant Williams is gone. You got Al Horford, you know. Now Al Horford goes from, you know, leaning on him to play 25 minutes a game to now you jump down and put him to about 13 to 15. So now he doesn't look as gassed and as old. So now, okay, cool. So when he comes off the bench, we don't need you to bail us out with 7 threes in the corner.
Yes.
We just need you to play solid basketball. You don't have to bail us out. You don't have to be leaned on the score. You do your thing, you know, and then you go sit down and you're not, and we didn't kill you, you know, because last year they killed that man, you know. So Robert Williams, we're going to be your starting 5 defensive anchor who's also working on his offense. And then, you know, he's going to be right next to Kristaps. That is huge. That is going to be one of the most dangerous 4 and 5 combos in the league.
Yeah, you're right.
In the league.
You're right.
It's going to be nasty. Block shot everywhere because Kristaps likes to block shots, you know, and his footwork, I think, is gonna be a lot better in Boston. I think Robert, you know, now he has somebody who he can just defend, and then that guy can go and score. Now Robert can just be himself. So it helps Rob too, you know. So I am very excited. They don't have to make another move, to be honest, for me to be excited and to think that they're going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals and the finals. I think this is the year where you can be the most confident in them. And when it comes to Malcolm Brogdon, hey, I would have loved for him to have been the starter, you know, because I'm just huge on him. I've seen him start before all his career, and he's been a damn good player. 90 kind of guy. But Derek White is a guy that he's stable. He makes really good decisions. He's a hell of a defender. He's a locker room guy, on the court guy, you know, and when you give him confidence and not let him just be the bystander and say, Derek, take control, you get some amazing games out of Derek, and he's consistent, you know, when he gets that opportunity. So I think it might be a good thing that he actually is starting, you know, as the starting point guard. He's a little bit bigger too, and he plays really good with the starting lineup. So I'm excited, man, and it just means that Jaylen's going to be your 2 guard, definitely. And he's an efficient scorer. So I think it's just going to help. Everybody's going to have equal help and be able to play their games. So I'm excited about this roster. And Jordan Walsh, I think, was a sneaky pick. I didn't know much about him. I had to go and research. He is a guy that he's an energy dude.
Yes.
He plays the right way. And there's no quit in his game. He's going to be all over the floor. You give him that corner 3, he's going to shoot it. It looks really good. So he doesn't have to play, but 8 to 9 minutes a game of solid, tough basketball. So what are we talking about? I got us going to the finals, people.
Biggest threat, real quick, their biggest threat to the Celtics across the league, not just the East. Who do you think 2 or 3 teams that concern you for this current makeup that they have?
Go ahead, Justin.
Milwaukee, you still got that core group with Giannis and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. You still got that core. Like I said, they just got a new coach, so they kind of scare me a little bit. I'm not really scared as much for Miami just because they lost Gabe Vincent, they lost Max Strus. So it's kind of going to be really tough
I
for
think
Miami.
Vincent's going to be a big bigger loss for them.
Big loss. And the Lakers is looking really good. The Lakers is looking really good. It depends on how healthy Anthony Davis and LeBron James could be, but they picked up really nice pieces that I like. Denver's still out there. They're still going to be like the favorites because they just won the title.
Lost Bruce Brown now.
They lost Bruce Brown. That's the thing. They lost Bruce Brown. They lost Jeff Green. So, and you still, but you still got Jokic, you still got Aaron Gordon, you still got Jamal Murray, you still got MPJ. So they're still kind of like the favorites because they just won the championship. So I got to respect them. So them teams kind of scare me a little bit. I'm not really scared as much with Golden State because I don't know what they're doing over there in Golden State, to be honest with you. So those Lakers, Nuggets, Milwaukee, they kind of scare me a little bit though, but I think Boston, like I said, if everybody can stay healthy, if they play really good basketball, if they able to overcome the late game decisions, have less turnovers, Boston's gonna be really hard to beat.
Healthy clip show?
I don't really trust the Clippers just because I really don't trust the Clippers because, like I say, we don't really know how healthy Kawhi and Paul George is going to be. Russell Westbrook, I really like I like that he stayed because he's probably been like your most consistent and healthy player along with Zubac. I wish they could play like the young guys a little bit more, like Terrence Mann and all of them. But they don't really strike fear with me, the Clippers. Okay. They really don't.
That's fair. What you got, Nat?
I'm gonna always show love to the Clippers. I'm just a Paul George lover, and I don't care where.
I love Paul George.
I do too.
I'm a Kawhi fanatic though, and I'm just pissed.
Kawhi. Exactly. I love Kawhi. I love Paul George. They got some guys I absolutely just love to watch over there. So I'm gonna always look at them like, man, do something. Like I believe in you. You have to be concerned about the Clippers because everyone, you don't win until you do. And then it's like, it could be that year, and it's like, you can't just overlook them because of health, because I can look at the Lakers and be like, well, LeBron is a year older, Anthony Davis plays when he wants to, and sometimes he'll look like, a 25-12 player. Then on another night, he'll look like 11-7, it just, and he's healthy, by the way. I don't want to hear that excuse. He's healthy. So, I'm not concerned necessarily. If you're not concerned about the Clippers, I'm not concerned about the Lakers. It just is what it is. But so I would say that I have such confidence in Boston. The East looks a mess.
Yeah.
Y'all ever seen the campaign? It's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah. I mean, we said the top three were locked slashed. I will never say the top three teams in the East are locked again after Miami at the 8th seed got to the finals. I can't do it. I feel like the East is wide open if the Celtics aren't in the finals. And
I'll tell you right now,
prove it to me now. I feel like they're on their way down.
I'm not concerned about Milwaukee anymore because you saw that crack in them, and it was a nasty one. Drew Holiday looked like he gave up, and it looked like that bench was just all over the place. Guys look a lot older, than maybe their ages. They just look a lot older and just they don't have it like they used to, but you got Giannis, and Giannis is the man, but Brook Lopez is a year older. Robin Lopez is a year. I think Robin signed with his brother.
Yes.
So he's a year older. And I love Robin Lopez too. He was my favorite Lopez brother. But it just still doesn't make sense to me just yet. And Giannis can be beaten. We've seen it.
Giannis can be beaten. Philly, what the heck is
Philly is a mess. And if you look at it, Harden wants nothing to do with Philly for some reason. So he sees something that we don't. Harden be seeing stuff because the very following year,
an effort player who loves to jump, who will quit on a team in a hot second. He will not.
You know what, Malika? I support him.
I know you do. We differ on James Harden. I recognize him as a great talent. I recognize him as a great talent.
He did get roasted with the Nets until they saw the rest of that squad fall apart because we was hosting in rooms. I was like, damn, he saw it. Like he don't even look like the bad guy no more.
I respect him as
Right.
a great talent,
Right?
but when the going get tough, Harden is out.
I'm gonna be real with you, Malika. Malika, he's on his way to 34, 35 years old. He has no time to play with.
I agree with that part. I just his leaving when the going get tough. I think he's a great talent. Houston Harden will live in my memory.
But he didn't leave, and he lost a lot in Houston. He didn't leave. He didn't say trade me. He was young. He was at his best, and
he did say trade me at the end. He showed up in
how many years?
He showed up in Kent with a fat suit.
How many years?
And then showed up at the Nets and got injured. And
how many years?
The next season.
How many years did he give Houston?
He gave him some years, but he disrespected the players in the live. He disrespected the players on that team that year. Boogie and John Wall going in there being disrespectful. He will get off of a team. He will make it so uncomfortable that you're going to trade himself. If
you would have said this about 27, 28-year-old James Harden, I would have agreed. But a 31, 32, 33-year-old, I'm just like, man, him, Kevin Durant, all these older guys.
Well, I love KD. KD isn't.
They don't have time to be in these organizations
situations
and waiting for them to get it right and waiting for you to get the right.
You're right. Maybe I'm a little too hard on him. Maybe I'm a little too hard on him, but
I ain't doing it.
I
ain't staying on the job, and all I do is push paper. Like I ain't doing.
Shout out to James Harden.
I respect him as a talent. Like I said, I do respect him as a talent. I thank you guys for being here. I knew this was going to be a fun episode. I love both you guys, and we need to that football mind. We need to have back to discuss the huddle side of our equation. Break down the NFL with training camps opening and preseason about to open. So I know that Brandon is fiending to do that because he wants to talk about some huddle stuff. Look at that smile. You see the smile.
I'm ready.
I love the insight. I love the insight. On the court, that's what we do. So I appreciate it.
But before we close out with some Celtics fans here, I just feel the need to call out Kemba Walker. Has signed a deal to play overseas, but I think, when the news came out, it was like, oh, poor Kemba. I don't think Kemba is, because of the injuries to his knees, I don't think he's an NBA player that's, like that could be dependent on to that level anymore. But I think he could contribute to a team. But I didn't want to see him as a third option, some locker room guy. He's Kemba Walker. I wanted to see him play again, but in what way? What I like about him playing overseas, and Nicholas Batum pointed out something where he said, it's not given to every good player to move to the third best team in EuroLeague and live in the south of France. Knowing the level of competition in EuroLeague is pretty good move after what Kemba went through the last couple of months. I think he meant the last couple of years. So that has me encouraged, and I'm going to get some streaming of the games because I think it sounds like a great situation for him to play in. He doesn't have the pressure and people making jokes about him over in the States, you know what I mean, or making comments about because his knee is almost done. He's playing in the south of France. It feels like it's a great, it's really good for him, you know what I mean, to play over there for a few years, maybe before he, gives it up, because with Kemba, his knee just couldn't hold up. And it's unfortunate, but it sounds like signing overseas is living in the south of France, getting paid for it, and sounds like a good move for him. And I trust Nick Batum since he's from there and he understands the market over there. Yes, so good for Kemba. Respect to Kemba. I will always love Kemba. Cardiac Kemba lives on. So thank you for being here, guys. And that, like I said, we'll be in touch to discuss NFL in detail and, of course, break down your Saints and what you think about them. But to talk about the NFL in general, especially what's going on with the running backs. I think it's atrocious. And I wanted to talk about this is going to be cut, by the way, some of the things that Stephen A has been saying. I just want to throw this out there to you and have you think about it. have running backs come out. They should have been negotiated because of what's going on with running backs by their second contract. They're not paying them, but that's usually when players get paid, that they should let running backs come out after their freshman season and play in the league. They shouldn't have to wait 3 years to get in the league. Because if you're using wear and tear as an argument against them getting paid, then let them come out earlier, because that's the one position that should be able to come out earlier. And that way they can take advantage of getting paid what they deserve. Because next year, the highest paid running back is a rookie. 13.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into, I want to get into that with you in detail.
We definitely can. I mean, I love what you just said, because I agree with that. They should be able to come out earlier. I think it's atrocious with what's going on with them. Like, I hate them, those black men running, like running. And
running backs are workhorses. And I'm a Giants fan. There's no way Danny Dimes would look even halfway decent without Saquon Barkley. And the fact that my team treated Saquon, they should not have a second franchise tag. Like, they shouldn't have to deal with two franchise tag. Like, I just think the way the NFL treats running backs is atrocious.
They should have a union. They should have a union, honestly.
They have to.
They have to have a separate. I think they need a separate union. I think
they need a separate union. They need a separate
their union doesn't look out for them. They're the worst.
NFL is different than the NBA. The NBA has 400 to 450 guys. Getting them to agree is a lot easier than telling 2,500.
Yeah, that's agreed. That's true.
That the numbers already. We can't get 8 people to agree on something.
That's true. And look at the NBA and look at the NBA. That the NCBA, that the middleman is going to get. The middleman is going to get. They thought they were going. CJ probably thought he was getting the middleman more money, because the mid-level, it's like mid-level and down, they all got increases to their even the two-way players. There were a lot of good things, even though it looks like it's, but in practice, they're going to be cut out. Like,
I will say, one of the things that the players went for, I believe that goes underlooked, is some of the benefits they got with revenue sharing in the BRI.
Yeah. I think that's great.
That deal, those licensing rights. Now that's not going to.
That's going to salary level players.
But they're definitely getting some other things in there.
We already seen with the mid-level players going to contenders. They're not going to be able to if they don't sign for the minimum.
Fair. That's fair.
They're going to have to go to non-competitive teams to get the mid-level exception.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here.